Good afternoon, ICF Stuttgart. Good afternoon, internationals. So, just a few words to myself. So, I'm Christof Hammel, as you already announced. I'm an engineer and doing project management for software development. But that's all. I want to stay for that. If you have any other questions, please come to me. But I want to tell you a story that just happened recently, 3 or 4 weeks ago. Saturday morning, I went to the hairdresser, and at that time, that's usually when I can read all those magazines, which I usually don't read, from the red top media, to read all about the VIPs and all the promis and the royals. And I went through all the magazines. I got a coffee from my hairdresser. And then I came across this article. So the author asks the reader, what do you think why God at all created the humans, men and women? And he gives 4 options. So first one, because he was fearing the loneliness, or he wanted to be adored or worshipped. So this sounds still pretty honest, but the second 2 options are pretty cynical, I would say. So as a moral test laboratory, the humans and the earth, or as for his personal entertainment. So you can think about what would you check in these 4 options. So I want to think about and elaborate about it, questions why God created at all the humans in this message, because I think it has a lot to do with the series Follow Me. And that's my first headline, recognize the calling of all human beings. Why are we at all on this earth? And when I was in the Sunday school and in the youth groups, so the leaders usually, they told us kids that story from the creation of the world, and they explained that God created the man and the women because he wanted to have community. I said, yeah, well, that sounds reasonable, but for me as a thinking person, that was not yet enough, not yet sufficient. And that's why I was thinking about a question over and over again for years until I started the Genesis, the creation story, more in detail. And then I came across an interpretation that really persuaded me. It sounds pretty reasonable to me. I want to warn you, maybe it's something what you have not heard before, maybe some sounds strange, but I also want to calm you down. It's not kind of heresy or some strange ideas, because it goes back to solid evangelical theologians, so don't worry about that. And this goes back to the first 2 verses in the Bible. Maybe you have read and heard 1,000 times before, but sometimes we read it, but we do not really look what is actually written there. And it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Full stop. Now the earth was formless and empty. So what these theologians were suddenly thinking about, what made them perplexed, why was the earth empty and formless after God created it? So in Hebrew, in the original text, there's the expression tohu vabohu. I'm not sure if you also have this in your language. That word made it also in the German language, so we use it. There's big mess. So when parents describe the children's room, they use this expression tohu vabohu. So everything upside down. So, but how can that happen? So God is perfect, and he can only create perfect things. So how can it be that it's a complete disaster, a mess, a chaos after he created the earth? Maybe you could now think, okay, in the first step he did just the rough things, and then in the second step he did more care about the details. But I think there are 2 good reasons against that explanation. It's against the character of God, because he's perfect, and he would create only perfect things right from the beginning. And a second reason is that a well-known creation story starts only later. So if you keep on reading in Genesis 1:3, it says, let there be light, and there was light. And there was evening, and there was morning the first day. So this was the first day. So, and what was that before in verse 1 and 2? So from that we can drive the conclusion that the earth has been already before that well-known creation story, what we heard already 1,000 times. And that's what these theologians call the initial creation. And what we always read about, this is the recreation. And so God created the earth already before this very detailed description of the creation of the world. And then something very serious must have happened. Big catastrophe, that suddenly the earth was formless and empty, completely ruined. And after that, God started over again to recreate the world and the earth. So what do you think about that? And there's another clear evidence that supports that theory or interpretation. You might think about it. That's the angels. So angels are also created beings. They are not from eternity to eternity. They're started at some time. But never in the Bible there was said anything about the creation of the angels. In the same way, the devil suddenly appears in the middle of the paradise. So, and these theologians, they say now that, or they explain in that way, in the initial creation, so devil, he was also in heaven. So originally the devil was an angel. He was the highest angel, the angel of the light. He started a rebellion against God. And as a consequence, God kicked him out of the heaven. So he chased him out. So he could not live any longer in the heaven. So, and he was thrown on earth. And when he bashed against earth, the earth was devastated. So that was the reason why the earth suddenly was messed up in a complete chaos and formless and empty. So now you might think about, okay, what has that to do with our title today, Now I'm Committed? We are still in the first chapter. You remember, recognize the calling of all human beings. And now the crucial point comes. So these theologians, they say that God created or recreated the world, and there he put the man and the woman in this perfect world. So the world was perfect, the paradise was there, the people, the men were still perfect, and God put the man into this perfect world to serve him as his servant, and in contest with the devil, to reconcile the world completely with God, because the world was fallen due to this thing what happened with the devil before. And now if you think about which mission God gave to the humans, now this also makes much sense, because he told the men and women, be fruitful and increase in number. And number 2, fill the earth and subdue it. So the man should rule the earth and not the devil. And if you think about it, the devil is still called the ruler of this earth. And if you just listen what is going on in the world right now, I think there's no doubt anymore that this world is really ruled by the devil. And number 3, to resist the sin, which means to resist the devil. So if this would have happened, then the world completely would have reconciled with God. If the people, if men and women would have done this, if they would have followed that mission. But unfortunately, something happened. So the man, they committed the sin. So, and that made them no longer usable for that mission. So, and that's why all the long story happened, from starting Noah to Abraham, Moses, all the history from the people of Israel until Jesus. And Jesus had to come back to rescue the man again. The people that were originally meant to rescue the world, suddenly they needed a rescuer. And Jesus had to become the rescuer for the people. And only then, after the men and women have been rescued again, only then they could come back to their original mission to reconcile the world with God, to bring people and the world back to God. So, and this also says a lot about our high position, that God wants us to have for such a noble mission. And so in the Bible it says we are made only a little bit lower than God. So in future we will even reign over the angels. And that says, David wrote this in Psalm 8, you made him little lower than heavenly beings and crowned him with glory and honor. So it's a privilege to serve for that Lord, for that sovereign. And we have in this series, you see this illustration, this key visual with this black and yellow car, this follow me car. But actually on the airport, it's not so much about a car, it's about a plane, right? And if the plane only remains at a gate and cruises around on the runway, it doesn't fulfill the mission. The mission for the plane is to fly from A to B, to bring carriage and to bring people, passengers from A to B. And in the same way, if we humans, if we don't realize our mission, our calling, and if we don't live in our calling, we will not find our fulfillment. So, and that's about this message today. And that's about the whole series, Follow Me, and that's about the gospel, and that's about the whole Bible. So this is the general calling to all of us human beings. And now we might say, okay, rescue the world, reconcile the world. Christof, is there something more concrete? I'm not getting up every day and say, okay, today I will rescue the world and reconcile the world. Yes, there's also a more concrete job for every one of us. And that's my point number 2. Recognize your specific, your individual calling and your potential. Because I'm persuaded that there is something that God put in your heart, a desire, a dream, a goal that has also a lot to do with God's vision and God's plan. And I'm also persuaded if you truly seek for this plan, He will reveal it to you. You will get to know about it. And God is not forcing you to do something that is completely against your character and against your personality and against your capabilities. I'm persuaded that there are things to really love, you like to do, that are terribly needed also in the God's kingdom. Maybe you dream of staying on that stage and making music and worship. Maybe you dream of becoming a famous speaker or an artist. Maybe you like to travel, or you like to travel and organize travels for other people. Maybe you like to do designs and videos. Maybe you like to work with kids. Many possibilities. And Steffen Wagner, he was posting on June 20th on Facebook exactly that question. And he was asking, what is your vision? What is your strength? What are your dreams? And so what are your main strengths, your capabilities as a technician, as a musician, maybe dealing with people? So we have understood there is a general calling for all of us, and there's also an individual calling for each one of us personally. And the question is that enough? So, as I said, I'm doing some software engineering, and every week I have some briefings with my project manager and with my boss, and then I get to know about the latest visions from the higher management, and then he's also telling me what we should contribute to that. And yeah, we get enthusiastic about it. Wow, big visions. And then I say, wait a moment. If we would do that, we would need 5 more people, we would need that more budget, we would need that more time, and we would need that knowledge and know-how. We don't have this, we don't have this. I'm sorry, we can't do it. So we also need the resources to carry out a mission. It's not sufficient to have just the wish, the dream, and the mission. So we also need the resources, the tools to carry it out. And God is promising that to us, that He not only gives us the big mission, He also will provide us with the necessary resources. And that's in Ephesians 4:7. And He says, each one of us has received a special gift in proportion to what Christ has given. So the first one, each one, means without any exception. Every one of you sitting here has given some gifts. So this means God is not giving you just an unsolvable task. He's also providing you with all the things you need to carry out a task. I want to tell you a story about my childhood. I think I have told you that before in another message. So I come from the countryside, from a farm. You might call me a farm boy or a cowboy. And you can consider this as Ponderosa. Have you heard about Bonanza? Who still knows Bonanza series? Oh, you're too young. Yeah. So. But just a little bit smaller. So that was the heroes of my childhood, the Cartwrights and Little Joe. That was my idol. Okay, I don't want to talk more about this. Where I come from, the winter times were really very strong, and there was a lot of snow always. So starting from November until February, March. So for us, it was the paradise. But we had a big courtyard in front of the house, and there the snow had to be cleared off. And usually my dad did this. And someday my dad came to me and said, Christof, now you are old enough. I was 10 or 11 years old. Now you are clearing off the snow from the courtyard. Now he could have given me a shovel and say, okay, good luck. See you in the evening for supper. But he didn't do that. He said, there is a tractor, there is the snowplow. In 1 hour I'm back, and until then you can do that. So he not only gave me the task, he gave me also the tool that I can carry out that task in endless time, in ending time. So, in the same way, God is not only providing us or giving us the big mission, He also provides us the tools and the prerequisites that we can carry out His mission. And for this, He gives us the capabilities, the abilities, the gifts, the talents. And that's the second point, what is meant in this Ephesians passage, the special gifts. So these gifts are specific to everyone, according to the grace of God. So this means they are individual, they are part of your personality. Dan has talked a lot about personality in the You Are the Future series. You might remember this MBTI personality model. So maybe you've done the test, then you know a little bit more about are you extrovert or introvert? Are you thinking person or feeling person? This is an important part of your personality. But another important part are your gifts, and that's why, or your talents. And that's why it's also important to start thinking about what are my gifts. And now you could ask other people, what do you think, what are my strengths? The question is if they are always honest to you. And that's why you can also do it in a more systematic way. And there are lots of so-called gifts or talent tests. And we have also one of these here as an ICF product. So Dan wrote that booklet. It was called initially the You've Got Talents. And now we put that together in this check-in course. So and we took that out from the store again and we'll offer it at a welcome point. So after the celebration, you can go there and get one copy of you. If you never thought about your gift, you should do such a test. I also did it, I think, 3 times in distance of a couple of years and also did that test again. So, and for me, it didn't change. It was always confirmed again. So my major top three gifts are, number 1, organization and leadership and teaching. And when I was thinking about it, I suddenly realized, okay, that's why I like more to do that tasks, and I rather leave the other tasks to other people. It's better if they do that. And these gifts or talents, they're also nothing final. It's just a starting point. So this means we have to develop them. And gifts also means a responsibility. So gifts are not just a present, a gift. So talents are not just a gift, which is for free. It also means responsibility. So in the German Constitution, there it says, property obliges. Its usage shall serve the common welfare. And in the same way, our immaterial property, the gifts, they also shall serve the others. So, and this can happen in 2 ways. The first one, I already said, by developing our gifts. So if there is a child that is very musical, like miracle children, but even this children, if it doesn't train and exercise about that gift, so it never can use that gift for its own benefit or the benefit of others. That's why we have to work on our gifts, on our talents. And that's why we started the Academy 1 year ago, only for that purpose, that you can discover your gifts and that you can develop your gifts. And now that's a commercial part now for our own account. In September, we have the sound engineer seminar with Benny Lange. He's really a professional. He's offering that also to the public. And he's also conducting that seminar in September here for the ICF members. And if you are part of the Dream Team or want to become part of the Dream Team, you get really a special prize. And number 2, in October, Samuel Wurster, he's also professional. He's a studied media engineer. He will offer and conduct a video seminar, so how to do the recording and how to do the cutting and all that stuff. So just feel free to check that out. So, so we have to develop our gifts, because only if we are developing them, only then we will make them perfect. And we can study for years and make theory for years, but it always stays only theory. So if we only want to grow, we have to use our gifts with task and to take up a mission, to take up a challenge. So in that, I'm not making now only theory. I want to illustrate that also an example from the practical life here from ICF. And from that, I want to ask Stefan to come on stage now. So, hi, Stefan. And if you are attentive, you might have seen him back there in the control room. He's leader of the media team. And I just wanted to show you how that can happen. So, and Stefan, just introduce yourself personally and what you are doing professionally and here at ICF.
Okay, you just heard, my name is Stefan. I'm 27 years old and I have the best job in the world. I'm an engineer.
Yeah, great. So I was talking about this general calling of us humans. So how would you describe it? If a colleague would ask you, what is the meaning of life? What would you tell him?
Okay, my meaning is that we're really meant to live in community with God and really worship Him, honor Him, and build His kingdom.
Okay, and how did it happen that you recognized this for yourself? When did that start?
That came quite slowly over time, but I really decided to live with God and do more in the church at a Heartbeat Day. That was 1.5 years ago. Okay,
and now coming more to the individual or personal calling, what would that be in your case?
You heard I have the best job in the world, and I really think God has put me there. And I don't know yet why He did that, what He's up to with it. Maybe I should just be an example for my colleagues to bring Christian lifestyle, Christian values back to a world that is full of egoism.
Okay, and final question. How can you describe how you started using your gifts, especially here in ICF? How did that come?
I have, through my job, a set of skills as an engineer working with PowerPoint and other presentation tools. And after I went to a small group here, it started that I really wanted to work in the church. And when a friend asked if I wanted to do the media team, that was really my way. It was really the thing I wanted to do. And 3 months later, I was leader of the team.
That's the way it can happen. Thank you very much, Stefan, for your willingness to come here up on stage, and thank you for your service, for your ministry, and also to your whole team. Thank you. So, there's many people are in the background, and you usually maybe you take it for granted that these screens are always showing clips and stuff like this. This wouldn't happen without those guys in the background, which you usually don't realize so much. Okay, and that brings me to the third chapter headline: recognize the freedom to commit yourself. I talked about my childhood before on the farm, and you can imagine on such a farm there is work never ending, and that's why also we children, we had our daily duties and tasks, and for us it was really more like obligation, like a duty. It was not really the fun thing which we would like to do. But that was the rule in our house. Whoever puts the feet under the table, he has to do his service in our house. And only later I recognized that in life it's more about just always to serve yourself, your own desires, and that a community can only work if everyone does his contribution to the community. And I also realized that I want to give something what my parents invested in me. So in this change in my mindset, that's very typical that happens in each one's life, or should happen in each one's life. So if we are born as a baby child, so we can't provide ourselves. So we're depending on the parents that they feed us. So we wouldn't survive without them. So we are getting provided by others. And then when we get older, teenage years, 15, 16, maybe until 25, so we get independent of them. We can earn our own money, we can live on our own, so we can feed ourselves. So we get self-providers. And then the next step, when we get a little bit more mature, so 25 to, let's say, 45, then we start maybe our own family, we have own kids, which we need to provide, and we take over responsibility for others, maybe not only for the own kids, maybe also for other groups. We get leaders of groups, maybe for the society. And we realize that we can also shape the world, the society, if we do something. So the English guys, they say action speaks louder than words, always talking about, how bad is the world, and complaining without doing anything. That's not very honest. So, and also the psychologists, they agree very much that we will become only a fulfilled or find a fulfilled life if we start understanding this, to become creative, to become generative, not only consuming all the time, but also doing something for others. And that's when we realize that it's worth investing in other people. We start maybe a honorary appointment, maybe in a club, maybe in a political party, maybe in a church, or in other ministries. So we start doing something that creates and that fosters life, and not only consuming always on our own. And that's a very important message today. So we have the development from being provided to self-providers to providers for others. So and that's not a very new insight. So God put that already in each one's life. For we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works which God prepared in advance for us to do. So God already prepared this, what we will do now and in the future. And I want to tell you now a little bit about me, how it happened, which ministries I did. And in parallel, there will be kind of animation about all the ministries you can find here in ICF. I will come back to that later at the end of the message. So for me, it started when I was 18 or 19. I just graduated from high school when I understood that being a Christian means more than just practicing all the traditions. And it was through friends from our youth group. And then I started going back to the youth group. And one evening, the leader asked me, Christof, could you imagine preparing a devotion next time? I said, well, I did it never before, but okay, let's try. Then I came to Stuttgart. I found another church. I went into a Hauskreis, small group. And then the small group split up. There were too many people. And then the leader asked me again, Christof, could you imagine leading that other part of the group? I said, well, I never did it before, but okay, I can try. I thought, well, that's more like administrational task, just putting some program together. Only later I understood, okay, that's also responsibility for people and spiritual responsibility. So I had to study that and talk to other leaders and visit seminars about this. And then this church, they also invited missionaries from all over the world, which they supported, and they gave reports about their projects. And in such an event, someone asked me, Christof, that would also be something for you, right? And I said, never thought about it, but okay, let's try. So in the following years, I spent my vacation for doing such short missionary trips to Romania and Mexico and China. And that also shaped me a lot, my thinking. If you realize that in Romania, if you give a simple pen to a Roma child and suddenly experience the happiness of this child by such a simple thing, it really changes your way of thinking. And then later in this church, a group started doing worship nights, and suddenly the question arose, who could do the preaching? They all looked at me and I said, okay, I can try, I never did it before. So I tried to figure out how to structure a preaching. Then later I came to ICF. I talked to Karin, I think the second or third evening when I was there. She asked me, Christof, could you imagine going to the media team where Stefan is now? I said, okay, I never did it before, but let's try. Then some weeks later, then asked me, can you imagine joining the operational management team? I said, okay, never did it before, but let's try. And so forth and so forth. So what I want to tell you with that story is it's always a mutual relationship with developing our gifts and being prepared for the next ministry. So if you take up a ministry, it challenges us, it will develop and shape our gifts, and this improved gifts will us prepare already for the next ministry and so forth. So if you take over a task, a job, a ministry, which really is according to our gifts, to our personality, that's also the key to a really fulfilling life, because we realize that we are needed. So it will serve the others, it will serve the common welfare, and we will develop ourselves. So that's a real win-win situation. But I also will be honest, if you take up a ministry, this is not always an easy walk. So there might be tensions and also conflict areas. It might be just unresponsible or dishonest if I wouldn't talk about this as well. So, and that's my last point. Experiences in our commitment. When you start doing something, what can happen? So experiences and maybe also recommendation. The first recommendation is always try to keep the balance. So if we do something that's really on our heart, that's our vision, so we really spend a lot of time and we actually also get energy out from it. But on the other side, there's also the risk of overstraining, overburdening ourselves, because we don't see the limits. And we always have to take care that we have to balance, that you also have something that gives you a kind of recovery from your service. Always keep the balance and have some compensation, whatever you do. Then the recommendation or experience number 2, if you start something doing, you might do mistakes and you become vulnerable. But as I said before, we are growing through our experiences, through our mistakes. We have to do mistakes to learn from them. So we shouldn't make them over and over again, the same mistakes, but we should learn from them. But we shouldn't resign and we shouldn't abandon them very fast if we face this, if we do some mistakes. I want to come back to the story from the farm, from the clearing off the snow, because there's also an extension of this story. So I climbed on the tractor, I started cruising around and clearing the snow off. And that worked pretty well until that moment when suddenly there was a small wall. I don't know how that suddenly occurred. And I crashed with full speed against that wall. And there was a terrible noise. And the snowplow was completely broken. So later when my dad came back, I had to admit what happened to me. So first, there was a serious rebuke to me, but then he said, okay, now we will fix that together. The next couple of hours we had to do in the garage, and we could fix that. So my dad looked at what we did, he put his arm on my shoulders and said, now we fixed it again. I already thought, okay, the next 10 years I will shuffle by hand the courtyard, but no, my dad said, and now you continue clearing off the snow with the tractor, but be careful. Now you know what you have to take care of. And in the same way is God. So he's not angry with us. If we do mistakes in the heat of the moment, he likes to forgive, he loves to forgive. For him, it's much worse if we don't start at all, only because of the fear of making mistakes. So what I want to tell you with that, if we start doing something, start investing our time, our gifts, we will experience the joy of success. But on the other hand, we will also experience the pain of failure. But both belongs to life. And then experience number 3, which I want to share with you. It can happen that the success or the results may not be visible or not be visible for a long time for you. So we start being very enthusiastic with our engagement. We are full of energy, the vision in the heart. We invest our gifts and our money and our time, and we do that over months and years. And then we step back and think, but where is the result? I can't see anything. Where is all the benefit from all the invest which I'm doing? Is that really my vision? Maybe I was mistaken about that vision. Is that really my gift? Am I the right person for that task? Is it really worth investing the time? So and if that happens, I want to give just 2 thoughts about it. The first one is that you always have people around you. And Kai Kohler was talking about that also in the You Are the Future series, the defenders of your dreams. That when you start a ministry, that have people that you can share your vision and that they can give you feedback. And also if you face then these dry times where you can't see results, that you get encouragement from other people. And he was talking about these different kinds of defenders of your dreams, so the advisors, the consultants, the mentors, and the coaches. And the second thought about this, a general truth is that only in very rare cases we will have very fast results. So don't take the fast results as your success, because very often we are only a small link in the long chain of God's actions, and very often we don't see behind the curtain, behind the scenes. So at the end, I want to share you a story. I was on vacation a couple of years ago in South Spain, Andalusia. And from there, we did a one-day trip to Gibraltar. From there, we took the ferry to North Africa, Morocco, Tanger. And there we had such a guided tour. And if you book such a tour, it's not so much about the interesting points, about the cultural stuff. It's more about the commercial, right? So they bring you from the camel riding to the snake charming, to the drugstore, and then finally we ended up in a carpet dealer store. So by that I really enjoyed. So yeah, you can sit down, relax, and get a tea, and you get presented all the carpets. And I was really getting interested in that, and I think the dealer, he realized my interest, and he said, in the back room I have many more carpets, and I followed him there, and actually hundreds and thousands of carpets were piling up until the ceiling, and he pulled one out from the shelf and gave it to me, and I looked at it, and I thought, what is this? It doesn't look really nice. There was no clear pattern. The colors were strange, and the single threads were hanging out, the strings, and it was knotted. And I thought, you're not serious about that carpet. And he must have seen my puzzled face, and then he smiled at me, and he unrolled the carpet. And suddenly I could see it from the front side. I saw it from the back side, the carpet. And that's very often in our life. So we have our human perspective. We only see the single strings going somewhere. So we don't see the big picture. So we see everything is messy. So it's crooked. We see the clutter. And that's why it's important that we keep on going if we don't see the results so far. So we think everything is so inconsistent and messy, but actually that is exactly needed on the back side, that God can create the perfect pattern on the front side. Even if it's not visible to us. Maybe it's only visible for God, the front side, a perfect pattern. Maybe only for other people visible. Maybe sometimes for us visible, but only years later. And sometimes God reveals it to us. He unrolls the carpet, and then suddenly we can get a glance at a perfect pattern, what God is doing with our service, which we think is so messy, and we don't see the results. And that's why it's worth that we think about that calling, what I talked about. God wants to reconcile the world together with us. He wants to use us for his dream to reconcile the world. And he wants to use us with your special calling. He has a special calling for you. And he has special gifts for you. So think about making the test. What are your strengths if you have not that done before, if you're not aware of your strengths? And the last point, think about your ministry. Where is your place? Where is your task? Where you can really develop and unfold your gifts. And for that, we have these job descriptions. You saw it already. Maybe you can start animation again. And on that side, to your right side, there are these posters for each and every ministry which we have here. We have a job description where it says what is basically the task, what you can do there, and which gifts are preferable being used there in these different ministries. And if you are currently in a ministry and you feel that dry times, you feel exhaustion, and you need a word of prayer, then I would invite you to the face-to-face launch. There will be people listen to you and have words of encouragement and have words of prayer for you. And now I want to pray for all of us. Thank you, Lord, for your great calling, for your great mission to reconcile the world with you. And then finally, to have community with you in eternity. And thank you that you also have a special calling for each one of us. You have none forgotten of us, without any exception. Everyone has given special gifts and a special calling. And I want to ask you that you reveal this special gift and the special callings for every one of us. Thank you for your grace, and thank you that you are really using us for your great mission. Amen.